Brian, help me here.
No,
Hello,
no,
Brian
it's awkward.
Blair with
It's too big for that.
Is this what people do this?
People do that all over the world, but that is definitely too big, I think, for your average American to hold up to their ear.
$1,100 for Yankee seats for me and Scarlett? You're out of your mind.
Wait, here, hold it up side by side with the iPhone.
There we go. Victor, wander in here, Victor.
comparison.
Victor, give us some compare and contrast love here. iPhone, Samsung.
And that's
There
the
it
iPhone
is.
5, so it's already big.
Why am I looking at the next Lisa with this watch?
Look, the reality of it is that people like tablets, people like 10-inch tablets, people like 4- and 5-inch phones. That is the middle. They call it the phablet. It's relatively low volume. That's pretty low volume. But the phone is really, I mean, the watch rather is what's key here, and this has to work with that right now out of the gate. So in order for that smartwatch to work, it has to be a companion to that device right now.
When I first saw the iPod, I was like, yeah, right. Justify why that's the next iPod.
I don't know if the market will be as big as the iPod. The iPod has sold hundreds of millions of units, but what that will sell tens of millions of units because it extends the functionality of your smartphone onto your wrist. You know, like you said, you don't want to hold that up to your ear. You don't want to take it out all the time. So a lot of the key features, notifications, emails, just some of the key data that you get all the time that you maybe don't want to take your phone out for is on your wrist. And they will sell tens of millions of units of that, but it's going to take them making it compatible with iPhone and other non-Samsung devices first before that can happen.
I mean, there is a big business story in the fact that people do get tired with the smartphone story, and Brian started the show talking about this. So whether it's a watch, whether it's glasses, there is an army of big companies right now that are trying to lead the way on what's going to be the next thing that excites you.
That's right.
And maybe that's a way to drive sales of their existing smartphones because they don't want to give up that market.
And that's exactly right, and that is why I think Samsung is forcing initial buyers of that to purchase the Note or the 10, or the Note 10-inch, because they know that they want that watch, but in order to get this initial functionality, you've got to buy this other device. And it's going to be a very expensive purchase if you do that, but I think they're going to use that to help drive sales out of the gate. I agree, John.
Well, in terms of devices and sales, let's just backtrack a little bit and put this into context here, because when we're talking about devices, everyone's looking for the next big thing, the game-changing device. Just as a matter of course, when Apple launched the iPhone in 2007, it made up just 3% of revenue. By 2012, it made up more than 50% of sales at Apple. Samsung's Galaxy only came out in 2009. By last year, it already made up 46% of 2012 revenue. So even though this Note device may not be the big winner, will it drive people over to the other Samsung suite of products?
It absolutely will, and that's why they're selling it this way, because what Samsung needs to sell is their ecosystem, much like Apple was trying to sell an ecosystem, and Google is as well. So what it will do, if you like that watch, it's going to tie you into their other products, whether it's their tablet or whether it's their phablet, this Note, or the watch, and eventually the TV. So the idea is they want you to buy everything Samsung, from your watch to your living room television and everything in between.
Okay, the new iPhone 5S, I believe I saw you had is $650 roughly.
Correct.
What's this new Samsung one? Just to compare and contrast.
So the watch is $299, and the pricing on the Note is roughly $600, $700
so,
unsubsidized.
But it's equivalent to the 5S.
Correct. It's actually a little bit more.
Which makes more money? Does Apple make more money on the new iPhone, or does Samsung make more money on what's it called, John? Help me.
This is the Note 3.
The Note 3.
So all the teardowns, which is when they take apart a phone and they take a look at all of the components, all of them suggest that the Samsung Galaxy products, including this Note, cost more than the iPhone to make. So to answer your question, Tom, Apple actually makes a better profit margin on their iPhones across the board on their high-end, on the high-end mobile devices.
Robert Burke, formerly of Bergdorf Goodman, now at Robert Burke Associates, is this something that people at Fashion Week are going to be talking about? I mean, will the people who lead the way in terms of shaping our tastes really catch on to something like this?
Well, I think you'll certainly see them talking about it, just like you've seen them talking about the Google glasses. I think that that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be adapted by the consumer, but it's new, it's interesting. But I don't know how this is really going to translate with the U.S. market.
Thank you. I agree. When I go to my favorite website, Models Off Duty, and when I go to Models Off Duty, they're not using this phone. This phone's for kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those gazelles they're like 19 years old or 17 years old, and they're like serious business people making $1 million. I'm sorry, they have an iPhone.
Too, I think.
Well, from a fashion standpoint, you wonder, and certainly just looking at the phone, is it something, and I see that it could definitely drive interest into the suite of Samsung by launching this and launching it first, and I'm sure there'll be others right after with Apple next week and things. But But the U.S. consumer as a whole is not so geared towards large devices. So
what about Asia, Scarlett? You were just in Asia. How big were the phones that you saw in Asia?
The phones were big. They were gigantic because people leapfrogged right over desktops and laptops straight into big phones.
So the New York models might not have the big phones, but in Asia, they're big business.
We're going to continue this discussion. Nicole from Samsung, don't let that phone off your wrist. They'll take your hand and your wrist with you as well when they take that watch.
Don't I know?
And the other thing is big phones mean big room for selfies. Everyone taking selfies.
What's a selfie?
Oh, Tom, we'll teach you that. We'll teach you in the break.